Audio. Okay, cool.
There you go.
Hey, how you doing?
Okay, how are you?
Doing good. Sorry about the little snafu. Not sure what happened there.
No, it's working now. That's all that matters.
Yeah, and then just a quick heads up. We put on the website, we put on the consultation form, but we've begun recording Zoom consultations and Zoom lessons, and we put them on YouTube. It just helps us out, especially during this whole COVID thing.
Okay.
So I read over your consultation form. You got a couple of dogs.
Correct.
One is a pup still, right? About 8 or 9 months, I believe.
9 months, yes.
9 months. And some reactivity with the puppy, and then pulling, essentially.
Correct.
Right.
So the major issues that we're having are the things that we want to work on with her. She's a puller on the leash. It's usually either bicycles or other dogs that get her excited. She's pretty good with other people, but she'll pull and she'll bark, and then when she starts to bark and reaches the end of her leash, she'll turn back around and start snipping at or chewing on Leon, our other dog, our older dog that's there with her. So I don't know but she does that in the evenings when she's playing with him. So I don't know if she's just trying to get somebody to play with her and get attention for her, or why she's doing it.
Okay. Aside from like the behavioral stuff, unless there's more, it just seemed like obedience, really.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
What are you needing her to be able to do?
Sit, stay when sit, stay, come when called. Stop the barking at the doorbell, that sort of thing. Not looking for any fancy tricks or anything. She's right here. Hang on. Come here.
Yeah.
So she's curious as to what's going on.
Yeah. Do you walk her on a harness?
Yes. Okay. We use a Joyride harness. I don't know if you're familiar with them.
Is that like for both like car rides and for walking, or is that
yes.
just okay.
So it's basically a harness that has 3 loops on it, one on the right, one on the left, and one in the center. We have them for both dogs, and it makes it easier to buckle them into the car seat and that sort of thing as well.
Okay. All right. Anything else?
I think that's it. I'm looking into the other room to see if my wife was going to join us, but no, that's about it.
Okay. And then the older dog, was it just 3 years old, or is it older?
He's 3, correct.
All right. Anything you care about with the older dog, or is it just mainly the puppy?
Mainly the puppy. Obviously, if he's a very mellow personality compared to her, and it might be with age, but he's always been. He has he'll come in, he'll sit, wait for his treat after a walk. He lifts up, he'll give you a paw before he gets his treat. He sits to eat. But same thing. I mean, as long as we're doing the sit, stay, come with her, reinforcing that with him and getting more of the the basic commands and obedience for both of them would be great.
Okay. Now, before reaching out, did you guys read up on me, do any research on me, watch my videos?
I got your name. There's another dog in the neighborhood, Maya. Her owner is a Polish lady. I believe her name is Iona.
Okay, yeah. So you're out there, huh?
Yes, I'm out there.
Okay.
She spoke very highly of you. So that's kind of how we got your name. Leon and Maya used to play all the time, but kind of feel bad because Leon can't play with any of his friends anymore when I'm walking both of them because she just goes nuts.
Right. All right. So aside from the referral, did you follow up or anything, or was it kind of like, we'll just give this guy a call? And
we watched some of your videos online, did just a couple searches and stuff like that on you. Sure. But we were kind of sold by what we saw and thought wouldn't hurt to have a chat with you and find out what we can do.
Yeah, so I how do you say, it's always good to make sure everybody's on the same page,
Okay.
you know? So puppies over 6 months and up that all train with me are all trained the same way.
Okay.
I'm known as what's e-collar trainer.
Okay.
And I'll describe more what an e-collar is. So Maya, I'm not sure if Ilona uses it anymore, but Maya came to me for some behavioral issues.
Mm-hmm.
Very territorial, nervous dog. She had a couple of trainers, and I think a behaviorist come out and like tell her all this like nonsense, and then I come along and I'm just like, your dog's nervous. You know, like that's at the end of the day, that's what's all this commotion is. Your dog is nervous.
Okay.
Right? So then we addressed that issue, and then Maya did very, very well. And so did Ilona with following up with the homework. But that was all done through e-collar.
Okay.
So even though Maya's, was she a Tibetan Terrier?
Yep.
Yep. People typically, when they think about e-collar, they're like, oh, that's for the aggressive dogs, or that's for like the Rottweilers or the pit bulls. I'm like, no, it's for every dog.
Mm-hmm.
Because even good dogs need control, or even good dogs or really friendly dogs can cause harm. So like, I have a client, they just wrapped up the program like a month ago, and their dog is like a 70-pound, maybe 80-pound lab mix. Very friendly guy, loves everyone, loves everything, but would pull them all over the place and actually broke the husband's shoulder twice and sent them to the ER 3 times in 2 years.
Okay.
So, because he was not obedience trained. And they were referred to me by other dogs that were trained, or other neighbors that were, their dogs were trained in the neighborhood. And now everybody in the neighborhood's like, oh my God, he's the miracle dog now, because he completely 180'd.
Okay.
So my Chihuahua, who's 8 pounds, is e-collar trained.
Okay.
Yep. So the reason why I go to that tool is because it gives me off-leash reliability.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's the only tool that guarantees you off-leash control.
Okay.
Okay, that's the biggest thing. And I'll talk more about training and the tools and do they go away and all that stuff. But that's the main thing, is right off the bat, we get off-leash control. Other trainers will tell you you have to do like a process of typically 3 steps before you get to the e-collar. The e-collar is the 3rd step. Okay. Now I understand as a business, it means more money.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't need to do the first steps, the first 2. It's not
Okay.
necessary. Okay. I've trained, all the dogs that I've trained a lot of them have had no training prior, and they were like 3 years old. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's never mattered to me. And the other thing is, when people go through the steps, they tend to be discouraged because they're not working. And with e-collar, right off the bat, they see the progress and the control and how easy it is, and that it's just effective, from day one, 95% of the time.
Okay.
So it keeps them motivated. So they keep training.
Yeah.
So, and the other thing is now, especially with COVID, a lot of training facilities are doing things via Zoom. And I'm starting to get a lot of their clients, because it's not working. E-collar allows me to not even need to touch the dog, but still be able to train the dog reliably.
Okay.
Just verbal coaching. Okay. So that's why we started recording things now. Partially because since it is verbal coaching, it's a ton of information.
Okay.
So it's going to be hard to retain everything for the average dog owner. They just go to my channel, they click on their video. Where was that part? There it is. They watch it. Great. They're good. Right? So there's a reference point for one. Another thing is, since I specialize in a lot of behavior work, I specialize in dog reactivity, which is what you're seeing from Simone with the barking at bikes and dogs and stuff. Is that it's in your case, it should be fairly simple, but in other cases, it can be a little complicated.
Okay.
And they don't know what they're kind of looking for. So then I'll say, watch this video to prep you for class.
Okay.
So once they start the class, they have a visual, and then I'm coaching them, and then they're able to kind of tie the 2 together.
Got it.
And the last thing is it just proves that we're very effective at what we do via e-collar. So when it comes to small dogs, my Chihuahua, he was actually a feral dog the first year of his life.
Okay.
When I got him, he wasn't house trained. He wasn't used to being indoors. He wasn't crate trained. He was very dog reactive, right? All these issues. And have you ever seen a prong collar, which is the spiky looking collar?
Yep.
So those are very effective tools as well. But they take more technical skill for the average for like the average dog owner to like really get a grasp on. But it's also very physical. So if a dog acts out, a prong collar acts as if another dog were biting your dog. Okay.
Okay.
So when you pull the leash, it's meant to bite or mimic the bite to correct your dog. Okay.
Understood.
So with my Chihuahua, again, 8 pounds, he was so reactive that I would pop him and he'd go spinning and then he'd go back to barking again.
Okay.
I had to do it 3 times before he would cut the crap. Okay. So then people are looking at me like, what the hell are you doing to your dog? I'm like, but it's not like it's even registering, you know?
Yeah.
Like he's just taking it and going right back at it. So e-collar allowed me to fix that issue very easily.
Okay.
Because it removes a lot of the physicality. We're not having to physically yank our dog, which if you have a smaller dog, you're going to get some kind of movement from them. And when they're really small, you get a really exaggerated movement. Okay?
Right.
And there's no guarantee that the prong will be enough to override the state of mind.
Got it.
Okay? So if a dog is at 20 and you give a 10, you're still short 10. Okay. So, and people always ask like, well, why is that? Like, because dogs bite each other.
Yeah.
Like, that's how they relate to the world and to each other is they bite. And they have a very high tolerance for discomfort. Okay. Size doesn't matter. Yes, a small dog can be very sensitive, but again, like my Chihuahua, they can be very tough. And unless the owner is willing to go to the extent needed physically to correct their dog, chances are they're not going to stop the behavior.
Got it.
So then people get uncomfortable because of the physicality. It's very confrontational. They're yanking their dog. And again, there's no guarantee that it's going to work. So like I have a couple, I trained their son's 2 dogs and they got a puppy recently. And the puppy was 6 months. It's a golden doodle. And they did prong collar. And I kept thinking, because they're 67 years old, they're retired.
Okay.
And I was like, I highly suggest you do e-collar, but if you want to try prong, maybe we can get away from it with it. The first 3 classes, they're yanking their dog all over the place. Dog didn't care. Okay, period. Just didn't care. Like they correct them. You stare at the dog, correct. Keep staring, correct even harder. Keep staring, correct. Start barking at them. Keep looking. Didn't care. Okay. We did e-collar, 1 class, no problem.
Okay.
Okay. So because technical skill and physical strength, you know, and then just the, you know, because they're older, they're not going to be able to move as if, you know, when they were younger, and that's a part of it as well. E-collar removes all that stuff. Okay?
Got it.
So I can be very subtle and I can be very harsh. Okay, and there's no physicality. The dog doesn't know where it's coming from, so there's no confrontation.
Okay.
And again, we get off-leash reliability so that, like, let's say they get off the leash or they happen to be off leash and something happens, like a firework blows up and they get spooked, or Simone gets spooked. At that moment, it's not about obedience anymore.
Yeah.
It's about behavior. You know, your dog perceives some kind of threat and is like, I need to run for my life because that's my genetic code. And with the e-collar, even if you said, Simone, come, like, she's like, screw you, man. Like every dog for themselves. You can make a return with the collar.
Got it.
Okay. So have you ever been to a chiropractor or a physical therapist?
I have.
Have you ever had TENS therapy, the muscle stimulator?
Yes.
That's the e-collar.
Okay.
So a lot of people think it's like a taser. They think it's like sticking your finger in an outlet or electrocution. That's not it at all. In my opinion, it's more refined than a TENS unit.
Okay.
With the human version, there's still risk of electrocution. If you have a pacemaker, they have to be careful. And there's risk of electrical burn. Okay. With e-collar, we get none of that stuff. Okay, so it's electric, but not electricity is typically how I phrase it to people. It's a centralized, there are 2 contact points that would be touching your dog's neck, and it would
Yeah.
move that particular muscle. Okay.
Okay.
And the way we train with it is very much similar to a physical therapist, is that start low and then we work our way up. So at the therapist, they would say, tell us when it becomes too uncomfortable. And as they raise it, you say, oh, that's too much. And then they lowered it a little bit and then they let it do its job. Okay.
Got it.
Very similar to dog training. We
Okay.
start low, we work our way up to find what's going to work for that particular dog. Okay.
Got it.
Size, again, makes no difference. Personality type makes no difference. Like I've had dogs that could be small and nervous, and their number is very high. And my collar goes to 127, to give you a frame of reference. Okay.
Okay.
Most dogs, 25 to 35 is the range.
Got it.
But I could get a small, 20-pound dog that's nervous, and their number would be like 85. Okay. So you see a very strong muscle contraction, but they're not yelping. They're not in pain. They're not any real discomfort, but that's the number they need to motivate them to perform what's needed.
I got you.
Okay. Question so far?
Nope. I mean, it makes sense to me. And, we originally, before we thought about going the professional training route, we thought about collars and exactly what you're saying. So
Sure.
this isn't a surprise to me. There's just so many out there that, we figured we'd talk to somebody first and figure out what works. So
Correct. So the way the collar is taught is a concept called pressure work.
okay.
So think of pressure like in the human world, we have peer pressure, when we're growing up. Do you drive?
Yep.
You ever been on the expressway and you have someone like really close to the back end of your car?
Yep.
Right? And it makes you feel uncomfortable. And you either like speed up, you might switch lanes, you might not do anything, or you might hit the brakes, or you might just swear at them. Right? That's pressure.
Okay.
It's discomfort. So the remote collar is pressure, and we can vary it, right? So we use it to teach the behaviors from beginning to end.
Okay.
Most people or trainers apply it at the end.
Got it.
The problem with that is that people tend to think of it as a punisher. So they'll teach the dog sit, the dog knows the mechanic or learns it of sitting, and then you're outside, you got the e-collar on the dog, you say sit, they're distracted so they don't do it, and then you blast them. Okay.
Yeah.
It's the worst way to train because they don't connect why that happened. Okay. What we do, have you ever pulled up and pressed down to make a dog sit? Like if you pull up on their collar and then push down on their butt, okay?
Yep.
So pressure, it's physical pressure. And then once they gave you the sit, you would resolve that pressure and it would go away. And if your dog got up, you could just keep repeating that. And eventually the dog goes, all right, well, I keep getting up and you keep making me sit. So I guess what happens if I just stay here? Nothing. I guess I'll just stay here. Okay. That's how they work.
Yeah. Okay.
So the same thing with the e-collar is they don't know why it's happening. So we start again, we find that number that gets their attention and is also concerning. Okay. So the concern part is so that they want to turn it off.
Okay.
So then let's say it's, 20 and your dog's looking around, they want to turn it off. And then as you're tapping, you would be helping them into the sit position. And then once they do so, you would resolve that pressure.
Got it.
And the dog goes, oh, this started happening. I didn't like it. But then you helped me with some guidance. And then when I did it, everything went away. Okay. And then maybe they pop up. And then I repeat it and they go, oh, I got up and it happened again. But when I sat down, it went away. Okay.
I got you.
So right off the bat, the reason why we're getting reliable obedience is because we're making the dog concerned about turning off the pressure. So they don't want it to turn back on. Okay. So then if I make the dog sit, like if you've ever done food, like dogs will sit for like a second and then they'll pop back up, right? Because there's nothing concerning. It's if they don't sit, the worst that can happen is they don't get the food, right?
Right.
But with the remote collar, since it keeps going off, right off the bat, when we teach a dog to sit, they'll hold it for minutes. Like they won't get up.
Yeah.
That's how they learn. Dogs dogs learn best through pressure.
Okay.
So the first thing that we always teach is the leash walking exercise, which is the heel command of walking, at your side.
Okay.
Okay. The reason why we teach this first is because if you slap an e-collar on a dog and you start remoting, they'll most likely move around. Okay.
Okay.
And their first instinct is typically run away. Okay. So we obviously don't want the dog to run away, but since it makes them move, we use a moving behavior like leash walking to teach them, when you're not following me, this thing turns on, and then when you follow me, it turns off.
Got it.
So then they learn and default to, when I feel the remote, I should go to mom or dad. I shouldn't go away from them.
Okay.
And then we start building off of that. So like leash walking would actually be what would address Simone's bike and dog reactivity.
Okay.
In most cases, and I think you're most likely in this range, is that reactivity comes from, it can come from aggression, but it can also come from frustration.
Okay.
So when I asked you if she walked on a harness and you said yes, the harness is actually why you're getting part of the reactivity.
Okay.
Or part of the reason why you're getting reactivity. Because is it a back or front clip?
It's it's a side clip.
So
It kind of. What's that?
When you clip your leash to it,
Yeah.
it clips to the sides.
It goes to the back.
Oh, so is it two sides that strip to the back and then? Yeah.
So it's here. Just hold on one second.
Sure.
The easiest way is just to show you.
Yeah, I see. So you clip to that back, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right back there.
So what happens is, since it's on the back, I mean, any harness in general is not good in my opinion.
Okay.
If your dog is not trained. So what happens is when they're pulling, it's putting pressure on the front of the chest,
Mm-hmm.
and it creates what's called opposition reflex.
Okay.
It's a fancy word, but all it means is when a dog feels pressure, they go against it. So
Okay.
when you pull back, they want to pull more forward. If you pull forward, they'll pull back. If you pull left, they pull right. You pull right, they'll pull left. Okay.
Okay.
So when a dog is targeting something or looking at something, let's say for instance with puppies, because this is typically how it starts, is when people get puppies, they put them on harnesses because they don't want them to put pressure on their throat. Okay.
Right.
You get it. But then what happens is they walk their puppy and they're either constantly pulling, or like if they see a dog, they'll pull their puppy away from the dog because they don't want the puppy to like bother them.
Mm-hmm.
But to the puppy, they take this negative pressure and they start to associate it to dogs because every time they see the dog, they're being pulled away. So it starts off with being friendly and wanting to greet the dog. But then since it's done so many times over the course of time, that friendliness becomes frustration. And then they're going, well, I really want to meet that dog, but I can't. So they start barking, right? Like a tantrum, if you will.
Okay.
And then it can become agitation. And then unknowingly over time, people make their dog aggressive because it just builds up. So
Okay.
now when the dog sees a dog or their dog sees a dog and they associate the agitation and the frustration and the year or the months of it, now they're like, whenever we see you, this negative tension kicks in. So I don't trust you. And then we have a problem.
Got it.
Okay. In other cases, the dog is still friendly because reactivity doesn't always mean aggression. The dog is friendly, but then since they feel that pressure and they're frustrated because they can't get to the stimulus, they start barking.
Okay.
So when the dog is properly trained, so my style of heel is if I take one step, the dog takes one step. If I take 5 steps, the dog takes 5 steps. When I stop, they automatically sit. And this is with the completely slack leash, up to no leash if the owner wants. And then I don't care what the environment is. I don't care if you're at the busy park. I don't care if you're at a restaurant patio. I don't care if you're in a quiet neighborhood. That's the level of obedience that we're wanting. Okay.
Yep.
When you have that level of discipline, reactivity a lot of times goes away. Okay.
Okay.
In the cases that the owner is still struggling with the reactivity, it's because the behavior has been practiced for so long, or the the severity of it is greater than the meaning of the obedience. So then we have to use a different approach.
Got it.
Okay. You're most likely with your dog, it's most likely just frustration.
Okay.
And the way it works in terms of training is how long it takes is contingent on what your goals are in the end. So a lot of times when I come in, people would love to have so much more, but they'll think their dog is like so far gone that they can only get so much. You know? But I'll tell them, because of the training method, you get so much more than you would actually think.
Okay.
Question so far?
Nope. Makes sense.
1 second. You need something, Corey? Oh, Scott, sorry. Oh,
I don't want to interrupt you.
sure. Yeah, I'm on a call until like 1:30.
That's fine.
Yeah, yeah.
Make sure everything's good.
Everything was great. You guys were great. I was actually gonna call you about it.
Cool.
All right.
Good.
Thank you.
Yep,
See you,
sounds
Fitz.
good.
Sorry, a client came to, we had cameras installed.
Yeah.
And he's a client of mine, so he came by to check out to see the work and everything. Sorry about that.
No worries.
So where was I at? Okay, so in terms of the progress or like the general layout of the program, from what I'm getting from you so far, you're like in the 6 to 9 week range, okay, in terms of the time. The more you want, the longer it takes, essentially.
Got it.
To train both dogs is actually not not that much more. Okay. Like, and you don't have to train both dogs to the same degree. Like if the older dog, if it was just a pulling and then recall, then you would just cover those things with that dog and then do more with Simone. Does that make sense?
Got it. Yep.
Because once you understand the exercise, it's super simple to transition it to another dog.
I got you.
So in a 6-week program, what I would expect to cover is heel or leash walking. It's typically 2 classes. And then Simone's reactivity would be a variable. Okay. What that means is theoretically the discipline and the heel work should resolve that issue. But if you come back class 3 or so and you say, Jesse, we're still struggling with it, then I'll say, okay, tell me what's happening. And then we might make a few adjustments, or we might, typically it's just raising the number. And I'll talk about consequence and behavior in a bit. But if we get the reactivity down just through the training of the leash walking, then we just go to obedience. Okay.
Gotcha.
So then the first 2 would be leash walking. And then the next 2 would be the recall or the come on call stuff.
Okay.
Because they typically take 2 classes apiece. Recall typically takes people the longest to get to the off-leash reliability, because it requires them to have to go somewhere in a lot of cases. You know, and then in the beginning when you're practicing, a lot of times the dogs get so cautious about leaving you that they kind of will gravitate and not be loose. So then you have to like rebuild comfort in the sense that like letting them know like you can run around, just make sure you come back when I call you. Okay.
Gotcha.
And then the last 2, you know, we work on, you know, the sit or the stay command. You know, those are typically a class apiece. The 9-week program would be, you know, leash walking, recall, sit, stay, and some sort of stationary command like down or place. And then you can start building to more towards off-leash reliability. Okay. The 12-week program is all the commands, and we built it up to off-leash reliability. So sit, stay, down, come, heel, place. 6 commands. Okay.
Okay.
That's the typical family pet. commands that we deal with are heel, sit, stay, down, place, and come when called. Okay. No matter what program you use or do, we always stress off-leash reliability for the come when called.
Okay.
That's the most important command.
Okay.
Questions about that stuff?
No, I mean, it makes sense, right? You've broken it down into the weeks and the increments and all that, and I get it because they all build on each other, and
Correct.
it makes sense. It takes more time the more you want to introduce and do to them or do with them. So
Right.
no, makes sense.
Let me see here. At the end of the day, it is your program, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like, if something happened after the first class out of the blue, and you're like, and it's not planned, it's not in the curriculum that we're planning, and you said, Jesse, can we address this? This is a concern. I'll say, sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
But whatever that was, if that took me 3 classes, that's technically 4. You'd have 2 left over, and we need more stuff to cover. You may need to extend more.
I gotcha.
Okay? Otherwise, if at the end of the 6, if we do as much as we can, and you say, I'm happy with this, then I say, great, thank you for the opportunity. Let us know if you need anything. Okay. So it's not so much cookie cutter in most cases, aside from, there's a slight structure to it, but every now and then things come out the blue.
Yeah.
And as long as we've done the first class on the leash walking, we can pretty much tackle anything else that we need to. Okay.
Gotcha.
Let me think here. In terms of training both dogs,
Mm-hmm.
typically, when we get multi-dog households, the first 2 classes we'll tell them extended half an hour, which is only an extra $35 per half an hour. So
Okay.
you'd be tackling $70 on top of your program cost. And then there would be the cost of your training collar, which would be a little bit more expensive because it's a 2-dog system.
Mm.
You probably end up paying an extra $200 to maybe $300 in total. That's a stretch, going $300 to train both dogs.
Gotcha.
Okay, because once we do the first 2 classes and you understand how it works, you typically don't need an extra half an hour for the rest of the classes to teach both dogs.
I gotcha.
Okay. Yeah, and what we'll do a lot of times is we'll work with the harder dog, and then since the other dog's easier, we'll work, we'll do like 45 minutes on the harder dog, and the last 15 minutes on the easier dog, and the owners are almost always able to just do the rest themselves because it's so simple.
Gotcha.
Because we used to do half an hour for every class, and then it ended up being too much time, and then we had to make stuff up to kill the time. So I've learned 2 classes. The first 2 is typically enough. Okay.
Okay.
We can always extend more if we need to.
Got it.
In terms of when the collar goes away, in my book, when you need it, it doesn't. Okay.
Okay.
So what that means is when you're outside and if you're going to be, on a long walk or anything quick, longer than a quick potty break, I'd have the dogs collared up. Okay. Because you can't account for life.
Right.
Okay. So the collar is present, but it doesn't mean you're always using it. It's
I gotcha.
present, right? So the most common or the easiest analogy that I give on the expressway, do you go to the speed limit?
Do I? No, I speed.
So do I. Okay. I'm not going to report you. Don't worry. Almost everybody speeds.
Yep.
Because there's no cops, right? As soon as they see a squad car, what does everybody do?
Slow down.
Because now there's an authority. Now there's threat of repercussion or consequence, right? Your dog's the same way. So think of that e-collar as a cop on a collar.
I gotcha.
Dog goes, okay, you got control. I'm going to behave myself. Okay. Dogs aren't like humans where you can decide one day, I want to hire somebody to address this problem that we have. Go looking for someone, contact them, decide whether or not to hire them, and then also decide whether or not you want to practice what they teach you, right?
Yeah.
You're proactive in the sense that you can keep making this decisions proactively, whereas dogs are reactive. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
They respond to what's going on. So if you go out without the collar, Simone might be like, oh, you don't got it today. What happens if I bark? Nothing? Cool. I've now learned that again.
Got it.
So it's nothing good or bad. It has nothing to do with my training skills. It has nothing to do with, your level of, how would you say, of training skill. It's just dogs are opportunistic. Every animal's opportunistic. It's just the way of the world. Okay.
I got you.
Inside the home, you got great dogs. You don't need it. If you have people coming inside and they bark, yes, you can use e-collar. But I also have other ways of correcting behaviors so that you don't always become reliant on the e-collar inside the home. But like, let's say you're going to have a family come over and you don't want the dogs to be all in their business, and you want them to be out the way, because there's now stimulus, because you have multiple people that are not typically in the home entering the home, they're going to be distracted.
Okay.
Okay, because now you need the control because life isn't what it typically is. There's a lot going on.
I got you.
Questions about that?
Nope. Makes sense.
Let me think here. So we got the e-collar. Does it go away? Trying to think of other common questions people ask. Does it hurt? There's a level of discomfort, which goes 0 to 127. So just like the TENS unit can become uncomfortable the more they raise it because it's that contraction. So like when they replicate labor pains in women, in men, that's a TENS unit. And it's it's painful because they're labor contractions, right? So when we train, we're not coming in to make the dog roll around in discomfort or anything like that. Okay, we start low, we work our way up, we find what's appropriate to the dog.
Okay.
Now, in my book, at the end of the classes, I usually tell people for the recall, what they'll want to do is randomly one day, while their dog is still on a long training leash, max out the collar and not say anything and start remoting and see what the dog does. Okay. The reason for this is experience has taught me shit happens. And you're going to have to go that high to override the dog.
Okay.
Okay. So like, again, going back to that fireworks scenario. Okay. If your dog is running for their life, you have to make them, quote unquote, more afraid of running away from you than they are running away from that firework.
I got it.
So when we do that in a controlled context, most dogs try to run away because they're like, holy crap, what's this? This is too much power. You have to work them through it to whip them around so they go, oh, the answer was to come back to dad, right? So you're proofing, and the only command I care about to that degree is the recall.
Okay.
So if the dog's charging the street, the dog is charging away from a firework, or running towards something they shouldn't, and it's a very dangerous situation, you don't have time to do that stuff,
Right.
to like ease the dog into it. You just have to do it. The other part is the emotional component, the human, right? So like I've had people, before we got to that point, have to do that, and they're like, Jesse, it sucked. Like I had a lady here in the city, her dog took off after a rabbit, and we hadn't even completed the program, and she's like, I don't know if what I did was right, but I had to do 120. Is the highest and most uncomfortable point that collar can go to.
Yeah.
And then she said, I had to do that, and then my Roxy yelled or yipped, jumped up in the air, hit the ground, and 180 back to me. And she's like, was that correct? And I said, yes. Because she would have been in the street had you not done it, So, but when she was talking about it, she's like, I felt so bad. It was terrible. And I go, yeah. I'm like, that's the emotional component, because you don't want to do that.
Right.
But you have to for the greater good, or for the dog.
Understood.
So, yeah, that's why I go, I'm a realistic trainer. I've heard some crazy stories in my career. I've seen some crazy things in my career, just from obedient stuff to even like high level human aggression. Is that I know what's realistic and what's not. And I always want to prep people for life. I hope you don't have to, that those things never occur, but in case they do, you're going to be okay.
Gotcha.
Okay. Questions?
No, do you incorporate any sort of treats or rewards or anything like that into the program, or is it all collar and pressure based?
We can incorporate it, but it's not necessary.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
The only time I incorporate food is if I'm training a really young puppy, because they're typically not old enough to have experienced enough things in life, like other dogs, like roughhousing with them and toughening them up, to be ready for it. So we pair it with food, and it helps relax them.
Okay.
If we have a really nervous or insecure dog, then I'll use food to help build more confidence. But in most cases, like we don't need to use food, period, for e-collar.
Okay.
The reason why I do solely e-collar is because I know you're not a dog trainer. Right? You're just a dog owner that wants something that's going to work, that's easy and effective. Right? Now, the one drawback to pressure only is in the beginning, your dog may look like what people see as depressed or mopey.
Okay.
And it's not. In a lot of cases, it's their dog just being calm. Okay, because they're used to their dog being all over the place, and they perceive it as happiness, but it's really excitement.
Got it.
The dog starts to get disciplined, then they're much more settled and they're calm. But to the owner, they're like, "Oh my God, my dog's depressed." I'm like, "No, your dog's just calm now."
Gotcha.
In other cases, it can, I would say, yeah, they look kind of mopey. It's because no one likes discipline, right? And because now it's coming into play, the dog's like, well, now I can't do whatever I want. That typically goes away over time as you start to expose your dog to more freedoms. Because if you have,
say hi. Come on.
Hi.
Hi, how you doing?
Good.
She's just curious what we're talking about and doing.
Talking about Simone.
Huh?
Talking about Simone.
Talking about Simone and Leon. Hi guys. All right, I'm sorry.
You're fine. Yeah, nobody likes discipline, right? So like when I was raised old school, I was spanked. So I didn't walk away from a spanking smiling.
Right.
And that's not the point behind the training, but because there's discipline involved and consequence, you're going to see that kind of behavior. But once they understand the rules of the game and you've taught the behavior, because in the beginning it tends to be a lot like boot camp, because you're teaching everything, right? And you're having to reinforce everything.
Yeah.
The dog gets the concepts and goes like, oh, you mean if you say heel and I just walk with you and don't pull and don't react, nothing happens? Cool. I can be chasing the squirrel, but as long as I come back to you when you call me, nothing happens? Cool. Oh, when guests come over, if I don't bark at them, nothing happens? Cool, right? Like once they start to understand that if they don't do certain things, there's no consequence, or if they respond when you cue something, there's no consequence, they start to relax.
Got it.
Then they know like, oh, there's a way to avoid these things. We just have to respond this way when we hear this word.
Okay.
So, questions?
No, I don't think so. It comes the logical question is cost, right? What's it cost? What's the logistics? Do you do? Will you come here? Do we have to go there? How's it all work?
Right. So because of COVID, COVID's flipped everything on its head.
Yep.
We've been meeting everybody at one location in Chicago. Now, for those coming out of the city, we've been meeting them at Independence Park, which is right off an expressway.
Okay.
This way, because where we meet now is like in the city. So then you have to like go to the expressway, get off, and like 30 minutes deep into the city, and it's just a pain. And we do verbal coaching right now. For other clients, we do have Zoom sessions where it's done over video.
Okay.
And what we do is I would send you videos of other clients. Right? You'd watch it, you would do it, and then you would have the Zoom with me to answer any questions, right? Like I didn't quite get this part. We're struggling with this part. We're seeing this that we didn't see in this, right? And I would coach you through that stuff. So it's kind of like online education, and then, you know, I help you with the stuff that you're not getting. Okay.
Okay.
Now, another potential here, but I have to double check this, is I do have other trainers at my facility. All right, my junior trainers, and they're very good trainers.
Mhm.
They train all our board and trains, all our daycare trains, and all that stuff. I'm just starting to give them their own clients.
Okay.
So the only part that they're learning now is, how do I communicate to a human what we're doing? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
The dog part is easy. They do that stuff all day, every day. It's the, how do I convey this to the human to get them to understand?
Right. I got you.
Is as long as one of them is willing to, and I think one of them is, because he's been liking taking on clients,
Mhm.
is we'll send someone to you.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be me, it'd be one of my trainers.
Got it.
The reason for that is we've had to limit my days of training and pick one location to see as many people in one spot as possible.
It makes sense.
Yeah, traveling takes up a big chunk of the day. Right?
I understand.
So during the week, I'm here at my facility. I'm doing these Zoom consultations. I'm doing Zoom lessons with puppies and, you know, other Zoom lessons. And then right now, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, people meet us at Oz Park or Independence Park if they're coming from the suburb.
Got it.
And I think we're opening up to a fourth day now because those days are filling up and we have more clients coming in.
Okay.
So you have a number of options. You know, if you would like the convenience of someone traveling out to you, don't mind sending one of my trainers out there.
Mhm.
It would be at a reduced cost because it is one of my trainers. But then there'd be a little bit of a fee on top of that to cover their gas and travel. Okay.
Understood.
Yeah. If you travel out here to us, you know, you would be working with me, and the program cost would be higher because now you're working with me, but now you're having to travel to me. Okay.
Yep.
And then the middle one would be everything over Zoom, and then I send you videos, and then we just kind of go back and forth in terms of what you're struggling with. Okay.
Gotcha.
Questions?
No. Do you have the ability? I like the path of, I don't mind the junior trainer, so to speak, for the convenience. Obviously, I've got 5 kids, so you know, the more that I can do here is a benefit to me.
Sure.
So I don't mind paying the travel fees and that sort of thing. I don't know if there's a way to do that and then maybe, you know, come down once in a while or follow up with you or do, you know, staggered Zooms, like 3 weeks with them and then do a Zoom meeting with you just to check in on the progress or something. I'm open. I'm just letting you know, where my mind's at is,
Sure.
to me, it's worth the value of, you know, having somebody come here if you're signing off on them and, you know, saying, yeah, they're good trainers and I would recommend them. Sure, why not give that a shot? Because if that ends up not working or whatever, then I would assume that you're open to revisiting and redesigning another program that would work.
Yeah. You know,
So,
we're very flexible. You know, I understand like there's going to be some things that they may not get, but in your case, this is super simple. So I don't think that'll happen. We just have to run numbers. Okay.
Yep.
I can give you, let me think here. Because as you were talking, I was kind of thinking of something like, if you wanted to do, we'll say, 6 in person, okay, with my junior trainer. And then you'd get 3 Zooms with me. So you essentially get 9 hours of work, okay? Because each class is an hour, unless you extend the half an hour. And I do that for $825, okay? To give you an idea of cost, 6 lessons with me and 2 Zoom lessons is $825. Okay, so you're getting a bit more, but he's also traveling out to you, and you're still getting to work with me. In terms of travel cost, I I would do 25 a class. So since it's 6 classes, it would just be 150 on top of the 825.
Gotcha.
If you wanted to extend that half an hour, it would just be 35 a class. Like I said, the first 2 classes would be the ones that I would do it for. So total cost, you'd be looking at like about, what is it, 825, 1045, I think.
Yeah, that's right.
And
1075 and 70, 1045.
And I believe with that setup, we'd cover the leash walking, we'd cover the recall. You'd actually probably get pretty darn close to off-leash training your dog within those 9 classes. Because in the Zoom sessions that you do with me, there's stuff that we can do over Zoom. It's super easy.
Okay.
So that when my trainer comes out, he's focusing on the stuff that you can only do in person.
Okay.
You know?
Yep.
And this way you're like, hey, Jesse taught me how to do sitting down with my dogs. And then he said to talk to you to like do this with them. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And then he's like, okay. And then he'd bridge that gap. And then whenever you're ready, you would schedule one with me. And then we just kind of go from there. Okay.
Got it.
So I actually think with that setup, you'd get a really good chunk done, because when it comes to off-leash training, all the exercises stay the same.
Yeah.
It's just how much time are you going to put into it? And then we use a long leash. We use a 30-foot leash to do recall stuff.
Okay.
And then we just keep doing the same stuff, but now we're changing the leash, you know? So
Mm-hmm.
typical progress is short leash, or, you know, the 6-foot leash, to long leash dragging, to no leash enclosed area, to no leash unenclosed area.
Got
Okay?
it.
That's like the general progress.
Progression. Yep.
So you're practicing the same stuff. You're just putting yourself in a different picture until you get to that point of no leash entirely.
Yep.
Okay. And that's if you want to put in that much work. You know, I know you got 5 kids, so you know, there's a lot on your plate there. And since you're working with my junior trainer and stuff, I wouldn't be so worried about keeping like, so typically with me, it's every week for an hour, same time, right? Because I got people, we got to
Yeah.
all that stuff.
Makes sense.
But if you work with one of my trainers, you could always book a week, and then maybe you need a couple of weeks because of the kids and stuff, and you can't get consistent practice. And then you schedule the second visit, you know, so it's kind of like as needed, to give you enough time to work through everything.
To practice it. I got it.
Because I've worked with plenty of families, and I understand. I grew up, we had a 4-kid household, you know, growing up. I'm the oldest.
Yeah.
So I completely get it. Like, you plan for something one day and then something happens, the kid gets sick, you know, all that stuff.
Right.
So yeah, so I think that'd work well for you. In terms of the collar, how much does your other dog weigh?
Simone's 25 and Leon's just shy of 40.
You're most likely going to be fine with the Dog Tread 282C, and we send you this information.
Okay.
I believe high end, okay, that collar is maybe $350.
Okay.
1 remote, 2 collars.
Got it.
Okay, so it's for both dogs. Because the 1 dog system is $237, so I'm assuming an extra $100 for the other collar. So I think you're looking around maybe around that price point. It's meant for 35-pound dogs and under.
Okay.
Since your dog has no issues and is a pretty mellow personality, I think you'll be fine. He'll be fine on that particular model.
Yeah.
Okay. It's a fully waterproof system. It's a half-mile range, so plenty of range for the standard family pet, and they last for years.
Got it.
I've had mine.
Go ahead.
I've had mine for 8 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, with the one remote, 2 collars, can you set it differently for each collar, or does right? If Leon's a 40 and Simone's a 30, can you do that, or do you have to toggle it back and forth?
Not with this particular model.
Okay.
This brand doesn't have that feature. There is a collar that does have that feature. And it's a good collar. My only issue with that brand is they tend to have more issues technically. Like the battery will die out. They'll be like malfunctioning. My theory is just because they put so many features. They're nice features. But they put so much into this device that it's taken away from everything else. The Dogtra is very simple. It's got the stem. It's got continuous stem. It's got pager, and that's about it. Right.
Got it.
But I very rarely have issues with them. So, and you get used to it. And in a lot of cases, you get used to going up and down between the dogs if needed. But remember, once they're both trained, like you're not even having to
use it really. It's there as a deterrent, not as a. Got it.
Correct. And then like you get used to just the up and down and the button stuff. Because as humans with remotes and all that stuff now, like we're very button savvy.
Right.
So eventually, people just get used to it. You can also, just so you know, pair a second remote to these collars.
Okay.
So like if you wanted your own collar or remote for the one particular dog and your wife wanted hers, like you can each have your own remote that would still control both dogs.
Got it.
So, but that's not necessary. It's kind of like if you want.
Gotcha.
And that would probably cost like $150 for the additional remote. Just off the top of my head, I'm thinking.
Yeah.
But that's usually something down the line like people think about. I don't worry about it in the beginning. Once you get used to life, how it applies to you, then you'll know like, yeah, it'd be beneficial to have a second remote.
I gotcha. Okay.
Other questions?
No, I think that's it. How long does it usually take, or from an availability getting started perspective? I'm open. I like what I've heard. The cost thing doesn't bother me. So really, it's let's get it documented up and get going from my perspective.
Sure. So it would all be based on my trainer's availability and then your availability. Okay. So I'll talk to Maria. I'm going to tell her about our setup here because this is the first time we've done this for anybody. And then all it is the way we're packaging stuff.
Right.
So that's not a problem. And then once she sees your schedule, and I'll tell her I'm most likely going to send Enrique to you.
Okay.
He has the most experience on teaching. He's here. Are you working from home now, or what's your like?
Yep.
What's your, okay, so are you like fairly flexible weekday wise?
Yeah.
Sweet. Okay, then I'm positive we can get you in fairly quickly.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, and then the only other thing that just popped to mind is we said six classes with him, 3 Zooms with you, I think, and that should get us most of the way there. If we need add on a couple more sessions, then I'm assuming we can do that or extend it as we need to.
Correct. We do have like individual Zoom sessions. They're $100. An individual training session is $135, and then it would just be the the travel fee to you.
Yep.
You can do that as well. I'm fairly confident in the leash walking, the recall stuff, the reactivity stuff. I'm not worried about really. I think we're pretty much going to get you super close to off leash. You'll probably be like 80 to 90%. Okay.
Yep.
You do have to do the homework, of course.
Understood.
Stuff. And then other than that, things should be pretty straightforward. Okay.
Works for me.
All right. It was a pleasure talking, Andrew. I'll talk to Maria. I'll relay this information to you.
Okay.
And then send you a form, and then I'll talk to my trainer, and then confirm everything, and then we'll get you in the books.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, if you need anything else, you let us know. Otherwise, we'll be in touch.
All right. Thanks, Jesse.
Awesome. Thank you, Andrew. Take care.
Take care. Bye now.
Bye-bye.